no room in the world that I'm going to believe someone can say, be authentic, and then in the next breath, here's a script. But they've lost me.
You're connecting with them on a human level before you ever make a pitch to list their home.
Some people, you do need to show them the light.
You're asking from a place of curiosity. You're going to start to get consistent answers that are going to make you a better agent.
They become a participant. They tell you what they feel. They tell you what they want. They tell you what makes a great realtor to them. You're having an active conversation and trying to get to know somebody on a deeper level.
All a sale is an agreement to think around something the same way.
Well, guys, welcome to the Agent Bridge podcast. Today we have Jamie Miller with The Art of Conscious Communication. Jamie teaches, well, I don't know how to say it, Jamie, exactly, but I know you're a communication expert, that you teach people all across the country, that somehow you've gotten your way into working with real estate agents, which I'm sorry about that, but apparently you're pretty good at it. And so we're thrilled to have you. And one of the things that I'll say is we're doing this podcast on the heels of the NAR settlement. We did not plan this, right? But communication has never been more important than it is now. So Jamie, welcome to the show. We're so glad to have you.
Glad to be here. Funny with the real estate industry, like I originally, when I started my business, realtors was the niche that I initially went towards.
Really?
And well, yeah, I mean, subsequently, communication affects every industry, so it's not just real estate now. But when I started my business, I was like, where would be the best place to go to help? And I realized what industry has an ability for someone to get a license to sell something with zero prerequisite for what comes out their mouth. And the one that came most to me in my limited capacity of brain thought was realtors, because they get a license and they are doing, I actually believe financial advisors, technically in my head now, are doing the most emotional sale on the planet, because I believe financial advisors can give someone the ability to do what they want, when they want, how they want, from a financial standpoint. However, I believe the actual realtors actually get on the mantelpiece and the award for what most people think is the most emotional sale. And what I find is too many people make it logical. Well, they asked me, is there a house in this location with this amount of rooms? And I sent them everything on the MLS that fit that. So I don't know what was missing. Well, did you find out why they wanted that many bedrooms when they're only one person? Did you find out anything? Did you go into an emotional space so they actually know you actually care? And that is what I find is the missing ingredient from a lot of the real estate industry.
It's funny you say that. We just did a podcast last week where we talked about people don't buy features. They buy their future self in a space. They buy themselves by the Christmas tree or the dinner table or whatever. They buy that vision. They don't buy features. They don't buy 2 beds and 2 baths.
Look, I never know where these podcast interviews are going to go. And one of my missions in life is leave people feeling better off than they found me, especially in their communication. I've been in houses with a client where, for instance, and I'm sure other realtors have done this. And if people watch this show and they're like, oh, that was me, I've done this. All right. Like the main room of a house that sells a house is the kitchen. Right. And then you got the other features. Well, I call it the puppy dog close. So I teach an analogy. Brandon seen me do this. I teach the wax on, wax off approach in terms of every single scenario you go through, it's all the same verbiage. It just it translates to different industries. I call this the puppy dog close. And I think both of you will appreciate this. And Brandon said earlier, people need direction. All right. So one of the things I teach is group psychology. All right. And selling based on that principle. So I think you'll like this. I've not told this story, so this is a fresh one for you guys, so you probably like it. I call it the puppy dog close. All right, so an ex-girlfriend and I was very limited as men. All right, back in the day when I was more of an amateur, I thought, how do I cheer up my girlfriend who's not happy, my ex-girlfriend? I'm like, oh, let's go hold some puppies. That always cheers everyone up. And before we went into the place, we're in my truck, all right, my old truck at the time. And the conversation we had was, hey, before we went in there, We are under no circumstances getting a puppy today. We're not getting one. And never in a million years will we get a puppy that sheds. Half an hour later, all right, my pocket was $3.5 grand lighter, and we walked out there. We walked out with a husky puppy, right? So we were just talking about emotions and understanding that psychology. All that happened was we were in there, and this little husky puppy licks my face, and it licks my ex's face, and then we say the sentence, "Oh, the kids would absolutely love this. Mm-hmm. Should we do it?" And then all of a sudden, that's what triggered it, right? So if in your audience, especially the realtors, they're walking a buyer around a home, and they're not fishing for a compliment on the home, and the buyer turns around and says, "Oh my God, I just love this kitchen. It's just to die for." Do not do this, guys. Don't say, "Oh, wait till you see the master bedroom. Come right this way." All right? Mm-hmm. That's not thinking about the emotion. So you elevate the emotion, and you make a comment like this. It's. I promise this is a class act. You turn around and say, "Do you know what? Every time I had a couple the other day come in, say, Jamie," they were in their car beforehand saying, "We don't care how good looking this Jamie guy is as a realtor. We don't care how much we love the home. We are in no circumstances going to make any snap decisions to buy this home." All right. And then they said the exact words that you just said. All right. Would you believe me? In the next 10 minutes, we're drawing up a contract on the house. And you got it right when the couple in front of you says, "Were you listening to our conversation in the car?" You can very easily get someone to feel confident to make a decision and not feel like a sucker based on the fact that if they say they love something, they would believe other people would love something and that they would do something about it and take an action.
Right.
So again, that's something I don't teach till week 12 in coaching, but it's based on understanding the stories and the concept of getting someone to shift their mindset very quickly. If that makes sense to share.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. I'm just thinking about, you being a communication expert and seeing this and working with a lot of agents and seeing this NAR settlement come out and all of the emotion come with it. You probably have seen just some of the terrible reporting from the media out there. Tell me some of the things that have gone on in your head and some of the things that you think real estate agents have got to know if they want to succeed in this new market or with whatever's changing, so on and so forth.
So look, I've been asked to do classes on this stuff, and I'll start here. The first question I asked you is, when you've bought something, did you ever read the fine print on the contract? And both you fellas said, no you don't. No. So if you're dealing, and let me tell you something, I'm going to give all agents permission. You get someone in front of you who really cares about the legalities in the contract, run.
True.
First bit of advice, run. Why would you want that in your life? Because that's the person, that's going to be the headache client.
Yeah.
I only don't even do sign agreements for my business to prove a point. That leads me to the second place. A lot of brokerages are going to start training their agents on understanding the contract and telling someone and leading them through the contract. And I'm here to tell you that's not based on a human relationship.
Right.
All right, with that first off. The second component is before you even get into a conversation with a buyer, my belief in conscious communication, what I teach sometimes I feel like a therapist. What conversation are you having with yourself? Are you buying into all this stuff? Or are you someone where you're having a conversation saying it's irrelevant to yourself? I will tell you there's words. When someone says there's a recession, here's my own self-talk. I'm not participating in that. In fact, I'm going to increase my pricing just to prove to someone. With my appearance, Brandon, look, I can take my hair out. I try and prove points that when someone says appearance matters, I'm going to prove to you I earn way more money looking more disheveled in life to prove a point. Mm-hmm. It's just my mindset around it. I always like to lead by an example of something. So what someone sells themselves on is the other part. So before the realtor goes into the conversation with the buyer, what questions are they asking themselves before they go into the interaction? Because that will be a critical component. Does that make sense to share as a...
Yeah, that's one of the things that I find that agents are doing most is they're selling themselves on the idea that the real estate market or that real estate's not going to be a profitable enterprise for them anymore.
They're doing a negative messaging before they go. It's like if I go into a phone call, this person's going to hang up on me. What's going to happen? Look, I am not Confucius. I'm Jamie Miller. I wasn't born when Confucius, supposedly, I guess, was born. Yeah. But he says, if you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you can't. Yeah. That's a self-talking mechanism. And then, obviously, within the details of the podcast, I can't go into all the psychology, yet the conversation you have with the other person first has to be garnering understanding. So if I'm a realtor, the first thing out my mouth to them is, hey, mate, just out of curiosity, what do you do for a living? Mm-hmm. Now I'm getting them talking.
Right.
And how many hours do you work? Just a curiosity. Are you doing a 9 to 5 or that doesn't even exist anymore? Oh my God, I work and I did this role play, where there's no script, by the way. It doesn't have to go, it's not a script. It's just making it about the other person first.
That's what we teach all the time, is that the great salesperson, quote unquote, is a person who's asking questions, because if you ask the right questions, people will build your pitch for you. Right?
But that's why the real estate, the broker's going to say, some brokers will say it's irrelevant. They're going to say these statements. Would you work for free? This is a question, by the way. Would you work for free? Or even worse, a statement. You wouldn't work for free, kind of thing. And that's what I'm going to see out there. Just like date the rate, marry the mortgage. If you sleep on it, you won't sleep in it. It's all been done, said, and it doesn't sway anyone in communication. If I ask someone, what do you do for work? All right. And they tell me, and I say things like this. Do you love it? Are you married to it? Is your boss always friendly and glorious with you? What? And they're going to be like, no. Hey, just out of curiosity, just humor me for a second. If you didn't get paid to actually go to your place, would you still go there? And what are they going to say? They then say, no, they wouldn't. It's a way different approach. Then you get to transition into your conversation to the next part. Do you know what? Based on what you just shared me, you're definitely going to appreciate where I'm coming from. Mm-hmm. And I call this the greatest sales play, by the way. And I don't know if I shared this from stage, Brandon. All right,
I don't remember.
The words are, if you go into a conversation with another human being, stranger, because we want to align with strangers. That's the other thing. The real estate industry is always about, go with your sphere of influence. No, I would hate to have friends or family use me as a realtor if I was a realtor, because they would abuse me and want things for better. I resonate with Brandon. You and I, we're friendly, but we didn't know each other before Nashville.
Right.
If your audience uses these words, it's called the "Has this ever happened for you?" play. And the reason I use the word, you said communication expert. If you ask someone, has this ever happened for you? It's better than, it's like a gift, rather than, has this ever happened to you? That could be negative. Has this ever happened for you? All right. And then you explain the situation. I get into gyms for free around the country. I've got free parking in New York, all right, doing this play, where I turn around to someone at the front desk. Hey, mate, has this ever happened for you? You ever gone traveling and you go to a gym you haven't been to before? And you end up approaching the counter, and the person behind the counter is just like the friendliest person of all time. And they ask you how long you're in town for, and you've gone and told them a couple of days, and they said, go ahead. It's pretty nice when that happens, right? And he goes, yeah. I'm like, great, you're going to appreciate me then. I'm Jamie, I'm visiting from Florida. And they start laughing, the predictability, and they're like, how long are you in town for? I'm like, 2 days. They're like, go ahead. What you're doing is you're making it about them first.
Yeah.
You could go up to a stranger at coffee place. I've done it. Hey, mate, has this ever happened for you? You ever go to a random coffee shop and get in a completely random conversation with a complete stranger, and it ends up being really positive? It's kind of nice when that interaction happens, right? Right. Great. Then you transition your conversation, then you'll appreciate me then. It's the same psychology, though, with the conversation realtors should have before bringing up I agree with you earlier where you're like, you have to set the expectations. You have to explain certain things. You have to explain how something's going to go. Before you do that, though, you have to get them to a place where they understand that they've got that in their life first. So I appreciate the nod of the heads, like you're like, okay, yes, those I think are the missing ingredients for people trying to, there's no script. Everyone in real estate world teaches script. I'm saying there's a framework. First thing, what conversation are you having with yourself? Second off, ask the questions of the other person first to see what their life's like, so you can get them to a place so when you explain where you're at, they're going to be understanding of you.
I think I've done that, and I just haven't put that in that exact framework. But that's exactly what it is, because well, first of all, it's about getting in that right headspace, right, where you're not walking into the scenario negatively, but also finding those connection points, truly understanding that other person, and in some ways even understanding the way that they communicate and the way that they approach the world, to be able to really connect with them.
It's also the same way we teach for sale by owners, right? You're connecting with them on a human level before you ever make a pitch to list their home. It's like you're trying to figure out where they're from, where they're going, why they're even leaving this great house. Get that level of understanding about them before you ever go to make a pitch.
I'm going to compare, and I call it LA Fitness Guy. All right. I used to work out LA Fitness, and when I would go there at the end of a workout, I would just for giggles just ask the LA Fitness sales guy just to see what their response is. I'd say, hey, I'm going to go and check out Planet Fitness down the street, and then just see what their response would be. And they would always go to this. Hey, the Planet Fitness, they don't have a swimming pool, and they don't have the basketball court, and they don't have the racquetball court, and they don't have the aerobics room with the punching bags. And then I'd say, well, now you've got me thinking I'm paying too much money. Why? I'm not using any of those things. Mm-hmm. Then have you ever gone on Facebook and you see the post, or social media, and you see the post from a videographer or a photographer where they got disgruntled because a client said they're too expensive. A potential client said, you're too expensive. And then they say, you don't realize all the schooling I've done. You don't realize the equipment I've bought. You don't realize I've got this feature, this benefit, this thing. And it's a diatribe of complete statements. All right. What they do is table. I'm seeing a lot of realtors on TikTok and social media. No one knows what value we bring. We do this, we do this, we do this, we do this. And that's, if they start selling from that standpoint, it's going to be game over for them. One of the things I teach people is statements are irrelevant. The only time you can make a statement is you have to follow up with a question. Hey, look, I'm going to make 600 grand this year coaching 50 people for 20 hours of work. Would you believe that I can help you in your sales? It's not just a standalone statement. It's a statement followed by a question of engagement to see if someone's excited. My Edward Jones clients, they used to say, Edward Jones is 100 years old. And
nobody cares.
Edward Jones, 100 years old, does it give you a sense of confidence to go with a company that's been around the block for a number of years and still going? Mm-hmm. All right. Or would you agree not every company is created equally as a result of these things? And now you get the head nod of the person in front of you to be like, I can go along with you here. So again, I think you're going to see a lot of statements made of where people think they bring value without what I call extracting value. The way you extract value is to ask someone a question, do you value it?
So can you give us an example of how to do that with this particular situation? And, real estate agents are trying to communicate their value to a client. In a lot of cases, there's an assumption with the general public that real estate agents get paid too much, or what do they really do? I think we as a real estate industry don't do a good job of explaining what we do. So can you give us an example of what you would say in those scenarios?
Easily. So Brandon, look, I can just pose a question back to you. Hey Brandon, do you think every realtor is created as equally as you and brings the same caliber to the table that you do?
No.
Okay. It's real simple. Do you see how I'm going? So you ask a client, a potential buyer or a seller, hey, would we be in agreement that not all realtors are created equally? And they go, yes. All right, so tell me, what do you think would make up a good one? And now I've asked them a question, and now they're telling me what they value in a realtor. Oh, your ability to communicate. Why'd you say that? Because the last one I had, let me tell you, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It's the same way when a buyer says, I want to sell my house at this price. Hey, look, and again, I am direct, which is fine, but I still pose it in a question. Hey, let's say I just sold it at that price that you wanted, and I didn't share with you what my thought process was. Would that make me a really good realtor in your eyes, or would that make me a complete amateur in your eyes? You tell me.
It's funny. I'm a lender also, and I had a conversation yesterday with someone who basically just opened up with me about how terrible their previous experience was with their lender. And they were sharing with me and I went into that. I was like, well, tell me exactly what they did that you didn't love or that you didn't feel comfortable with. And once they named all those things, you be sure that as the conversation progressed, I made sure to hit on all those things that they didn't get from their last lender. So it's something that I definitely see how you'd want to ask those questions to get those responses about what would make a good agent so that you can make sure you nail those things for this client and any other future client that would want a great realtor.
The other thing that I love about it, though, is that you're actually connecting with the person.
Exactly.
Right. You're building a relationship.
And their needs, because everybody's needs are different. Like you might want something in a realtor and he might want something different.
Yeah.
Do you realize, and you've been, okay, so watch this, fellas. If you've been in a meeting with a brokerage, right, whether you're starting out as a realtor, what have you, and one of the components that's so critical is praise. Brandon, you were a high caliber individual in that room in Nashville that I connected with, all right, more so than others. And that's genuine compliment. I remember, we bonded in that room more so than other people. And you're nodding your head, yes, yeah, I felt that energy. Yeah. All right, kind of scenario. We as human beings, we love genuine praise. I didn't create that philosophy. Right? If people have been in, realtors will do stuff. They'll go to a meeting and they'll see one of their counterparts getting a listing, and everyone in the room is like, that's overpriced. All right. And the person's getting praised for getting an overpriced listing in front of everyone. The next real estate sales meeting, 10 more realtors have overpriced listings. All right. Why? Because they want the praise more than they do the actual money. Yeah. All right. So what, RL, to go to your point, lenders too, when this whole fiasco last year with the higher interest rates, most lenders are getting taught a script. Well, let me tell you why this doesn't, let me tell you, right? Rather than, hey, look, before I share anything, all right, why would you say the interest rate should be irrelevant? Is my first question, all right? If the person in front of me looks a bit perplexed, I then go with multiple choice questions to steer a conversation. Hey, would you say you've got really terrible taste, or would you say you've got pretty good taste when it comes to buying a home? What are they going to say? No, I've got terrible taste. Everyone in the world will say, I've got really good taste. I'm like, terrific. So when the rates come down, which you're saying you want to wait for, they're going to give you a higher chance of getting the property you want or a lower chance. Mm-hmm. And I let them, and then do you see how I'm steering a conversation towards a direction to get them to understand where they're going so they can understand the situation. All right, so when I ask a question, so what do you think you should be doing with this home? Do you know what, Jamie? We should be buying it. All right, and then, by the way, you can refinance down the road. All right, and now it's a human connection. You can gather information from people, by the way. Gathering information is critical. That means asking questions. If people are really paying attention, you can gather information if they're holding a coffee cup. Realtors miss the boat on this. I don't think we can afford this house. Be an ethical realtor. I'm not talking like trying to find someone a home 200 grand more than what they're looking for. But if they're like 20 grand, 50 grand in their head, over budget in a house, all right, that they really love, but they're holding a Starbucks cup in front of me, I'd be like, hey, you want the house, you want to make sure it's financially feasible. And I use the word feasible on purpose. You don't want to say you want the house, you just don't want to be broke, because they're going to picture themselves now psychologically broke. But if you say you want the house, you want to make sure it's financially feasible, the word feasible gets the brain to be creative. RL's doing the most lovely loan on the planet because it's 30 years. It's the most feasibility scenario you can ever do in the world, all right? You want the house, I can't help yet notice you're holding a Starbucks cup. Hey, you ever go there more than once in a day? Because if you're gathering information, someone goes to Starbucks, they're spending money on something, it's addictive, so they're doing it a lot. And if you get them to say, I have gone more than once in a day, then you get to get creative. Hey, look, usually for my buyers, I buy them a set of Cutco knives or a generator or something. In your case, I'll make an exception. I'll buy you a coffee bean grinder, a French press. It's going to be a very sophisticated experience. And I've got a supplier of the 6-month greatest sophisticated beans around the world, better than what you're holding in your hand right now. And you get to do it in the luxury of this home. How's it feel? How would it feel to sit in a booth in this kitchen All right, drinking your coffee in the morning, would that feel pretty good? Yes. And here's what I know about human beings. When they want something, when they want it, they get resourceful. So they'll still go to Starbucks even after buying the cup. You're not being unethical sticking someone in a home that they love, that in their head is 20 to 50 grand when you're going to save them money.
Yeah.
Do you like in terms of what they're already spending it on? Does that make sense? Hopefully when people are watching this, pay attention in front of you. Like you've got to make it conversational and you can't be a robot. You can't be a script. You have to read the body language. If you see confusion or perplexity, go with it. If you see someone nodding their head, you get to call them out for it. Do you know what? The mere fact you're nodding your head means I can see that you're getting this, like in terms of what I'm doing.
Yeah, and what I love about it is you're actually, rather than preaching at them or trying to push them or strangle them into your way of thinking, you're asking them questions to get them to think differently, to reshape their perspective.
Well, I'm just telling a story. I'm focusing on the fact they drink coffee. They're spending a fortune on coffee in that instance. What about the person who pulls up in a car that's all pimped out? Mm-hmm. All right. And they're getting into tears. First time home buyers. Oh my God, I'm leaving a legacy for my kids, my family that I'm going to have and stuff. And they're in tears about it because you've done it correctly. They're emotionally charged. And then they're going to tell you they can't afford the house. Yet you know they've got a Mercedes or they've spent money. And you just say, hey, just out of curiosity, the cars, they go up or down in value for you? Mm-hmm. Down. Okay. Does that mode of transport ever get you into tears the same way that you did here with this? No. Okay. Could you see where this would be a more feasible, sensible scenario for you? And all you're trying to do is get them to say, yes, that would be. If I have got cliche at all, and I've learned anything, to make clarity, I'm a clarity coach. I'm not a cheerleader. I'm not like your rah-rah. Like I try and give someone clarity so that they can have direction. All a sale is an agreement to think around something the same way. And when both parties agree to think the same way, you can indeed have someone who's part of your tribe, your vibe. And the world would be boring if everyone thought the same way.
Yeah.
All right. I don't ever want to go in a room where everyone thinks the same way. I don't want 100% of the world as clients. That would be boring. I don't want just realtors as clients. That would be boring. My belief is you can build rapport ethically with other human beings. I can have a complete different accent from both of you guys, yet build rapport and make us the same. Hey, are you like me? Do you value honesty? I've never had someone say, no, I really love to be lied to. Please, like, go ahead and do that right now. All right. If I want to get specific in the rapport build, like you were asking, the most important thing a realtor can ask in rapport build is, are you like me in understanding not every real estate professional is created equally? And the second someone says yes to you, you then can layer the questions to make sure that it's the idea is that you don't immediately go, well, then you're going to appreciate me straight away. You have to ask questions and you have to layer those questions so you get more understanding. That's what RL did earlier. It wasn't like the person said, I hate my last lender because of da, 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 da. He's like, oh, well, then immediately you're going to love me because I do this, this, this. He said clearly on this platform, he goes, I asked, tell me more about that. I'm like, RL, I love you. But that tells me he's more sophisticated in understanding. Brandon, you said earlier, I love the clients I get where they tell me, Jamie, I'm doing some of this stuff. What you're doing is you're allowing me to do it more consciously. So I do it more frequently. So I get better results. So I'm aligned with an actual consciousness around what I'm doing rather than I've done it. I didn't know I was doing it.
Yeah.
And that's, but then as a coach, when you're coaching your team, it's always best when you take someone the greatest distance. I find that I get two types of clients, and you tell me if this aligns with success in your industries. I either get the realtor or the lender who's already successful. Jamie, teach me one thing I don't know. All right, that will make me better. All right, and I'll pay a fortune for it. Or I get that rookie who is so serious and aspiring to be the top of the game, they will go into massive debt in order to invest in themselves to get there. Then here's what happens. Then you get everyone else, and you get very small percentage of everyone else where they actually figure it out for themselves. But it's a long journey and process of School of Hard Knocks. But then you get the masses where the ones who are probably going to, if they do quit, they're having negative conversations with themselves, and they weren't achieving success when it was before this whole scenario. And now they're like in disarray and panic and going on TikTok and watching videos that they have no right that they should be watching.
Yeah. What I love about this methodology, though, is they become a participant in the conversation. So it's not just like you're telling them these are the things you should think, or this is how you should believe, or this is what you should want. It's they become a participant. They tell you what they feel. They tell you what they want. They tell you what makes a great realtor to them. And then you're just kind of coming back to them with things that will fill in the gaps. And so it's not preaching or just even teaching from a soapbox. You're having an active conversation and trying to get to know somebody on a deeper level, which to me is great.
Yeah.
So watch this, and you can throw out things. Sorry, Brandon.
Go ahead, please.
You're going to face objections. There's no lay down. All right, you're trying
question,
to right. But from the standpoint of, you got me thinking about my daughter when she came up to me and goes, "Dad, I want a cell phone," and I didn't give her. I said, "No, your brother need to go on to his 12." All right, it just sticks in my head as this popular story. And if she would have come up to me and first made it about me and goes, "Dad, do you care about my safety?" We're going to have a completely different outcome than her saying, "I want this scenario." All right. What you're talking about there, RL, is a conversation. I throw this out there to my clients before I bring them on. Hey, June and July, I go on vacation. Doesn't mean I'll be available for you if you face if you're in a pickle situation, you can reach out to me and I'll get back to you in 24 hours. No matter where I am on this planet, I'll get back to you. I just don't do an hour-long session during June and July. If someone looks perplexed when I share something like that, all right, they don't. I would just pose a question. Hey, when you go on vacation, do you like to work, or would you like the ideally vacation when you're on vacation? And you see how I'm doing it as a question? And then they I want a vacation. Okay, so is it okay if you're learning from someone who can teach you how to replicate that for yourself? And that's the right client. So RL, some people, you do need to show them the light to a degree, but you can do it in a question based format rather than telling them format. It's like the person, have you been pre-approved yet? Someone might say, if they say flat out no, all right, you probably don't want to work with them. If they say we haven't yet, I can work with that person. Do you see the difference in the way they respond to you is going to, I don't do a signed agreement. If someone says, "What do you mean you don't do a signed agreement?" I'm like, we're probably not going to be a good fit here. Do you know? And that's okay. And that's the ability to not take on headache clients, which a lot of realtors will take on clients through fear of missing out. That is so there you go.
I'm going to give you my line for pre-approval, and we'll just see how this jives with a communication expert. And you can either like it or you can improve it. But what I would always say is I'm sure you're probably already happy with the lender you're using. And then that, instead of asking, "Are you pre-approved?" the reason that I would say
that's a beautiful. Brandon, I love that. I'm going to let you listen. That's the kind of play where I'll be like, I always give praise and credit where credit's due. I'll be like, none of us invented this. I didn't invent one concept that I've shared today. Is not invented by me. It's purely what's between these two ears that I believe with clarity that shared. Brandon, that is a beautiful. That's not that. There's no fixing of that. What you're doing is you're asking a question. It's like, I think every realtor should ask this question: "Hey, do you believe in a work-life balance?" When starting out, and if someone says no, you do not want them as a client. If they say, "I would like to believe in that," okay, I can work with that kind of. You're waiting for the responses, and you don't want to teach. No one will get someone from point A to point B doing this play. Have you ever heard someone say, "What's the cost?" I've studied this enough to know if someone gets asked, "What's the cost?" There are some salespeople. This is not a cost. This is a statement. Look at the statements. They'll say, "This is not a cost. This is an investment." And there's a big difference between a cost and an investment. And here's why. And now they're doing all the talking, not the client. All right. And you're educating. You're not going to get them to see the clarity by doing that play. That's LA Fitness Guy. That's statement based. Rather than you ask, hey, I noticed you words cost. Would you say there's a difference between a cost and an investment? Yes. Just out of curiosity, humor me. What would you say is the difference? And now they're telling me. Every time you nod your head, yes, here's what you're telling me in my head. There are people that you know that don't know this stuff, who don't think this way, who, if they actually listen to this stuff, they'll be like, this random British guy's making some sense.
That's exactly what I was
That's
thinking.
exactly what I'm thinking too. It's just people just need to, with the pre-approval thing, for instance, like I always tell people, I'm like, if you come at them and you say, are you pre-approved? That's the same as asking them, do you have money? Right, which is
that's the same. That's the person who says you're going to pull my credit, and my credit's going to get dinged, and this babe, I've got this baby of my credit, and I'm worried about that. Your question about have you with the lender is beautiful because you're already. It's like when I say I'm going on vacation during this summer, June and July. You're waiting for a reaction. You know with predictability how people respond to that. Brandon is going to tell you. All right, what kind of client they're going to be.
Yeah, there's no question. There's no question. And also it's an opportunity. Yeah, there's so much opportunity. But again, the thing that I would say that to me is sort of the pinnacle of all of this way of communication is not that you are merely getting to the closing table, but then when you're asking genuinely, like when you're asking from a place of curiosity, you're going to start to get consistent answers that are going to make you a better agent because you're going to understand what's truly important to people, and you can increase your ability as a real estate agent based on what people are telling you repeatedly when you're genuinely curious.
I've been in a brokerage locally here where the guy's got like 2,000 agents, and I was in the room doing a talk, and I teach. There's no script, but there's a framework to a conversation. The first thing I teach is gathering information. It's asking questions. Second thing I call it is garnering understanding. No one likes to be sold, but if you can get them to see, you would do the same thing. If they were you, they won't feel sold. And the third thing is I call predictability. And if you have those three things, you get outcome, all right, more likely that you're looking for. It removes chance from the outcome scenario. I told gathering information. They all went up to him afterwards because you just said the word curiosity. And they all said, oh my God, Jamie taught the most amazing concept of gathering information. And I'll never forget, the broker was like, I've been teaching you guys to be curious for years. It's this like what the heck? You needed to hear a British accent just say gather information. It's like a different, it's like this random epiphany, that's what it got me thinking. Brent, there's so many different ways to absorb information. I think you hit the nail on the head. It's got to be genuine. But then I don't believe scripts are genuine. Everyone in the world is throwing around this word authenticity. Like it's so important, and it really is. I'll tell you though, there's no room in the world that I'm going to believe someone can say, be authentic, and then in the next breath, here's a script. That they're going to win me over. They've lost me. The second they say be authentic and then they say here's a script, I'm like, can you pick one? Like, your question is different than most people ask. Have you been approved yet? Most people in retail, hey, may I help you? Every answer, no, I'm just looking, thanks. All right, you're seeding. Where are you at in this gauge? Have you even reached out to a lender yet? Like, how serious are you? Is how they answer that question is what that's telling you for the next steps. So,
well, I could talk about this stuff all day, but unfortunately, we have to wrap up. But Jamie, where can we learn more from you?
Okay, well, I've had to create different platforms now, in all truth, and I'm someone where I've genuinely looked to attract business. I don't check. There's not the chase. I never ask you, hey, can I be on here? Do you know, play? I've got a platform where with this kind of setup, I can give my phone number, which is what you took down. I'm happy for people to have it so they can reach out and inquire like how I help. where it's, and if I may share, it's 407-620-7862. Again, 407-620-7862. So now we know if people watch it and then they text me, we can have a gauge on that. All right.
Okay.
Secondly, this is my 5th year of business. And I don't know, Brandon, if you've seen it through my Facebook or anything. It's maybe a week and a half old now. I never thought I would have Jamie in a box. I get way more satisfaction having a conversation, even virtually, seeing you or seeing clients and speaking or teaching for nothing in front of someone than I ever do the recordings of me. Hopefully this podcast, technically, it's a recording. It sits out there. It's a lot of information. I've been asked by people, Jamie, you need more people to learn this stuff. It's a gift for people. So I've created, and I'm limited in thought process, but I created if people go to artofconsciouscommunication.com/edu, I've created a lifetime access for $19.96. If someone says, where does $19.96 come from? That was the year I started college. My game plan is to help everyone where they can't have an excuse. I'm not doing any paid advertising. They've either seen me on here or seen me on Facebook or seen me talk on a stage. And then I'm growing it organically where it goes. We can both agree $20 doesn't change my life. All right. And it's not about it's my way of having some skin in the game. Yep. Where they get to have access to watch a recording where each recording is worth more than $20 if they actually analyze it and we are in agreement on the caliber of it. I believe this show is worth way more than $20 to the realtors who actually paid attention. Was like, even Brandon, even you with what you shared as a host, or even RL, what you shared as a host in terms of how you addressed how you call up and ask someone if they've been pre-approved was fantastic. And RL, how you layer the questions when someone says, I didn't like my last person, and asking, can you elaborate on that? That in my head is gold, all right? Or platinum or whatever the most glorious. If people go to that, it's a one-time payment. And I know I'm doing it right because people either say, wow, or they go, is that a subscription? And I'm like, no, it's just one and done. And then if someone puts on the Agent Bridge podcast or what have you as where they heard about it, for every 1,000 people, so if one person gets 1,000 people, it's meant to be like suggesting a book. I'm taking them on a personal development retreat.
Oh, wow.
That's cool.
And and now I created a predictability with when I share that, that's the reaction it gets. So again, it's all about, it's not you're getting this money back. It's I'm just taking you on a personal development retreat.
Great.
And so that now people are seeing it. It's a gift and they're incentivized to share that it can help other people.
That's wonderful.
So
Jamie,
there you go.
Thank you so much for your time today. We really, really appreciate it. Again, you can find it at artofconsciouscommunication.com/edu to get that special deal. Jamie, again, thank you so much for your time. We really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Actually, thank you. Like, genuine, apart from like my internet going out, that was a fun, that was glorious.
Totally. It was enjoyable.
That was a blast. Thank you.